It is common practice to use either max pooling or average pooling at the end of a neural network, but before the output layer, in order to reduce the features to a smaller summarized form. Max pooling strips away all information in the specified kernel except for the strongest signal. Average pooling summarizes the signal in the kernel to a single average. The displayed example network uses the AvgPool2D function to perform average pooling on the output of the second convolutional layer. The kernel size argument is required and determines how large of an area the average pooling is taken over. I chose 4 because it evenly divides the height and width of the output of the conv2D layer above it, which is 16 by 16. The stride can be specified as smaller or larger than the kernel size, but having it be equal to the kernel size ensures that there is no overlap in the output averages, as is the case if the stride is less than the kernel size, and that no values are skipped over, as is the case if the stride is greater than the kernel size. This value defaults to kernel size. Padding is the implicit zero padding to be added to the edges of the inputs before calculation. This can be useful if your kernel size does not evenly divide the height and width of the input features. This will default to 0. Average pooling needs to compute a new output shape. This is usually calculated using a formula involving the kernel size, stride, padding, and shape of the inputs, then taking the floor of that calculation. This can be changed to the ceiling by setting ceil mode to true. Count include pad becomes relevant if you have added implicit zero padding. In that case, setting count include pad to true will instruct average pool to include the zero padding when calculating its averages. After the average pool layer is set up, we simply need to add it to our forward method. One last thing, the input dimensions of the fully connected output layer need to be changed to match average pool, as average pool changes the shape of layer 2's outputs. The input dimension is now 32 by 4 by 4. Because average pool has reduced the height and width of each feature mapped to 4. This needs to also be updated in the view function so that it is outputting tensors of the desired shape.